The year was 2347. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Confederation for almost 200 years. In all that time, they had been quiet. They had been peaceful. They had followed every rule and obeyed every law that the older species had created. And in all that time, no one had listened to them. Ambassador Daniel Carter walked into the Grand Council chamber with heavy steps. He had made this walk many times before. He knew every crack in the crystal floor. He knew every face that would look down at him with contempt. He knew exactly what would happen today, just as it had happened every time before. But he had to try. He always had to try. The chamber was massive. It stretched up so high that the ceiling disappeared into darkness. 12 platforms floated in a circle, each one holding the representatives of the most powerful empires in the known galaxy. These were species that had ruled the stars when humanity was still learning to make fire. They had built civilizations that spanned thousands of worlds. While humans were fighting with sticks and stones, they did not respect humanity. They barely noticed humanity existed. Daniel stopped in the center of the chamber and looked up at the 12 platforms. His translator device hummed quietly in his ear, ready to convert the alien languages into words he could understand. "I speak for Earth and all human colonies," Daniel said. His voice echoed in the vast space. "I bring another formal complaint against the Vorthani Empire." High Counselor Zixter made a clicking sound with his mandibles. He was an insectoid creature, nearly 3 meters tall, with a shell that gleamed like polished metal. His species, the Kethrani, had been the dominant power in the galaxy for over 50,000 years. They viewed all other species as children at best and insects at worst. "Another complaint," Zixter said. The translator made his voice sound bored. "The humans complain again. How many times is this now?" "This is the 47th formal complaint in the past 30 years, Daniel replied. He kept his voice calm, even though his hands wanted to shake with anger. "In that time, the Vorthani have attacked 17 of our colony worlds. They have killed over 40,000 human civilians. They have taken more than 12,000 of our people as slaves." "Slaves?" Ambassador Kralvos of the Dominari Republic laughed. He was a tall creature covered in blue scales, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light. Such a strong word. "The Vorthani simply collect labor resources. It is their way. It has always been their way. Their way is murder and kidnapping," said Admiral Lisa Grant. She stood beside Daniel, wearing her military uniform with its many medals and ribbons. Her hair was gray now, and her face showed the lines of many hard years. She had personally visited the destroyed colonies. She had seen the bodies. She had held the hands of dying children who asked why no one had come to help them. "Your emotions are noted," Zixter said dismissively. "But emotions do not change facts. The Vorthani have territorial claims in those regions that predate human expansion. You built colonies in disputed space. You accepted the risk. Those territories were classified as open space in your own records," Daniel said. He pulled out a datapad and held it up. "I have the documentation right here. The Confederation approved our settlement permits. We followed your procedures exactly." "Procedures change," said Ambassador Morthan of the Vorthani Empire. He was a massive reptilian creature with green scales and teeth like daggers. His voice was a deep rumble that made the floor vibrate. "What was open yesterday may be claimed today. The strong take what they want. The weak accept what they are given. This is the natural law of the universe." Daniel took a deep breath. He had heard these words so many times. Every species in this chamber believed them. Power was everything. Mercy was weakness. Kindness was stupidity. Humanity had tried so hard to show them a different way. "We are not asking for war," Daniel said slowly. "We are not asking for revenge. We are asking for justice. We are asking you to enforce your own laws. The Confederation Charter says that no member species may attack another member species without cause. The Vorthani have violated this charter 47 times. The charter is a guideline, Zixter replied, not a command. It exists to maintain order among equals. Humanity is not equal. You are a young species. You have been in space for only a few centuries. The Vorthani have been a power for 20,000 years. They have earned the right to do as they please. So there is no justice for humanity, Lisa said. It was not a question. There is the justice that you are strong enough to take, Morthan answered with a smile that showed all his teeth. If you want us to stop, make us stop. But you cannot. You are weak. Your ships are few and small. Your weapons are primitive. You exist because we allow you to exist. Remember that, human. Daniel looked at Lisa. She looked back at him. In that single glance, they shared everything they were both thinking. They had tried for so long. They had been patient beyond measure. They had hoped that perhaps, if they just kept trying, these ancient species might learn to see humanity as partners instead of prey. That hope was dead now. Counselor Zixter, Daniel said. His voice was different now, quieter, harder. I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. I want you to remember these words. I want you to think about them later when everything changes. The chamber fell silent. Something in Daniel's tone had caught their attention. Humanity has spent 200 years being peaceful. We have traded fairly with every species that would trade with us. We have shared our medicine and our knowledge freely. When your people were sick, our doctors healed them. When your students wanted to learn, our teachers taught them. We have done everything we could to be good neighbors in this galaxy. Very noble, Krelvo said mockingly. And very useless. Perhaps, Daniel agreed. But I want you to understand something. We were not peaceful because we were weak. We were peaceful because we chose to be. And now I am asking you, one final time, with all the respect I can still find in my heart, please do not push us further. The chamber exploded with laughter. All 12 species, all the most powerful beings in the galaxy, laughed at the small human standing in the center of their great hall. The human threatens us. Morthan roared with amusement. This tiny creature from a tiny world dares to warn the masters of the universe. What will you do, little human? Write another complaint? Give another speech? Daniel did not smile. He did not react at all. He simply waited for the laughter to fade. We have given you every chance, he said when the chamber was quiet again. We have begged. We have pleaded. We have followed your rules and played your games. And you have responded with contempt and cruelty. So be it. You have made your choice. Now you will live with the consequences. He turned and walked toward the exit. Lisa followed him. Consequences. Zixter called after him. What consequences? You are nothing. You have always been nothing. You will always be nothing. Daniel stopped at the door and looked back one final time. Remember that I warned you, he said. Remember that I asked nicely. Remember that you laughed. Then he walked down, and the doors closed behind him. In the hallway outside, Lisa matched his stride as they headed toward their shuttle. They will never stop, she said quietly. The Vorthani are planning another raid right now. Our intelligence says they are targeting New Austin. 3 million people live there. I know, Daniel said. We have tried everything else. There is nothing more to try. I know. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been waiting for 200 years. Is it time? Daniel stopped walking. He stood in the crystal hallway of the Confederation headquarters, surrounded by the symbols of powers that thought they ruled the galaxy. He thought about the 40,000 dead. He thought about the 12,000 slaves. He thought about every insult, every dismissal, every laugh. He thought about what humanity had been hiding all this time. The real ships, the real weapons, the real power that they had never shown anyone because they had hoped, so desperately hoped, that they would never need to use it. Send the message to Earth, Daniel said. Authorization code Omega-7. Tell them to wake up the fleet. And then we show the universe why we kept asking them to stop. Lisa nodded once and pulled out her communicator. The universe had no idea what was coming. 3 months passed after Daniel Carter walked out of the Grand Council chamber. In that time, the Vorthani Empire prepared their largest raid yet. 60 warships gathered at the edge of human space, ready to attack the colony world called New Austin. New Austin was home to 3 million people, families, children, farmers and teachers, and doctors who had built a new life among the stars. They knew the Vorthani were coming. They had received warnings from Earth, but they did not evacuate. Earth had told them to stay. Earth had told them help was coming. Warlord Grathnak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the crushing fist, and smiled at the view on his screen. The human colony was just ahead. He could already imagine the screaming, the running, the begging. Humans made such satisfying sounds when they were afraid. All ships report ready, his second-in-command announced. We can begin the attack whenever you command. Let them see us first, Grathnak said. Let them understand what is coming. Fear makes the hunt more enjoyable. His fleet moved forward slowly, letting the colonists on New Austin watch their doom approach. 60 warships, each one armed with weapons that could level cities. This would be the greatest raid in Vorthani history. They would take so many slaves that songs would be written about this day. Then the sensors made a strange sound. Warlord, the sensor officer said with confusion in his voice. We are detecting another ship. It just appeared from nowhere. One vessel. It is moving to intercept us. One ship? Grathnik laughed. The humans send one ship against 60? Show me. The view screen changed to show the approaching vessel, and Grathnak stopped laughing. He had never seen anything like it. The ship was massive, at least 3 kilometers long. It was shaped like a blade, sleek and deadly, and it glowed with an energy that made his scales itch. Every instinct in his body suddenly screamed that he was looking at something dangerous. Something very, very dangerous. What is that? He demanded. That cannot be a human ship. They do not have ships like that. No one has ships like that. The ship is broadcasting an identification signal, the communications officer reported. His voice was shaking slightly. It identifies itself as the USS Redemption. Human origin. It is hailing us. Grathnak forced himself to stay calm. It was one ship. Just one ship against 60. Numbers were numbers. Math was math. One could not defeat 60, no matter how impressive it looked. Put them through, he ordered. The face that appeared on his screen was a human male. Middle-aged, with brown hair turning gray at the edges, and eyes that held no fear at all. He wore a uniform that Grathnak did not recognize, with symbols and medals that meant nothing to him. I am Captain Nathan Cole of the USS Redemption, the human said. His voice was calm and clear. You are in human territory with hostile intent. I am giving you one opportunity to turn your fleet around and return to Vorthani space. This is not a negotiation. This is a courtesy. Grathnak stared at the screen for a moment. Then he started to laugh. He laughed so hard that his whole body shook. One ship, he roared. You bring one ship and you tell me to retreat? Human, you are either the bravest fool in the galaxy or the stupidest. Either way, you will die today. Nathan Cole did not react. His expression did not change at all. I warned you, he said simply. Remember that I warned you. Fire all weapons. Grathnak screamed. All ships, destroy that thing. 60 warships opened fire at the same moment. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, energy beams, kinetic weapons. Everything they had, all pointed at one target. The amount of firepower they unleashed could have cracked a small moon into pieces. The shots hit the redemption shields. The shields flashed blue for just a moment, and nothing happened. No damage. No weakening. Not even a flicker. What? Grathnak whispered on the bridge of the redemption. Nathan Cole turned to his tactical officer. Ryan, he said quietly, show them why we asked them not to push us. Ryan Torres nodded once and pressed a button on his console. What happened next took exactly 90 seconds. The Redemption's main weapon fired. It was not a beam or a missile or anything the Varthani had ever seen before. It was a wave of pure destruction that seemed to erase reality itself. The first Varthani ship simply vanished. One moment it was there. The next moment it was nothing but floating atoms. The weapon fired again. And again. And again. Grathnak watched in frozen horror as his fleet disappeared around him. Ship after ship destroyed in an instant. His warriors did not even have time to scream. They were there, and then they were gone. 40 ships left. 30, 20, 10. Retreat. Grathnak finally screamed. All ships retreat. Get us out of here. But there was nowhere to run. The Redemption was faster than anything the Varthani had. It moved through space like a predator playing with its food. In 90 seconds, the entire fleet of 60 warships had been reduced to debris and escape pods. The Crushing Fist was the last ship standing. Its weapons were offline. Its engines were dead. Grathnak sat in his command chair, unable to move, unable to think. Nathan Cole's face appeared on his screen again. Warlord Grathnak, the human said. Your fleet has been destroyed. Your ship is disabled. You and your surviving crew will be collected and returned to Varthani space unharmed. Why? Grathnak managed to whisper. Why not kill us? We would kill you. Yes, Nathan agreed. You would. That is the difference between us. We could kill you. We choose not to. We are not monsters, Warlord. We never wanted to be. But you made us show you what we could do. You pushed us. You were warned not to push us. The human leaned forward slightly. Go home. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that humanity has 300 ships like this one. Tell them that we have weapons they cannot imagine and defenses they cannot break. Tell them that we have been hiding our true power for 200 years because we hoped we would never have to use it. He paused. And tell them this. We are coming for our people. Every human you have taken as a slave will be freed. Every military base you use for your raids will be destroyed. We will tear down your empire's ability to hurt anyone ever again. But we will not kill your civilians. We will not bomb your cities. We will not become what you are. When we are finished, we will go home. We will leave you alive. We will even help you rebuild if you let us. Why? Grathnak asked again. He could not understand. None of this made sense. Because that is who we are, Nathan said. We did not hide our power because we were ashamed of it. We hid it because we were afraid of what we might become if we used it. Now we have no choice. You took that choice from us. But we still get to choose how we use our power. And we choose mercy. The screen went dark. Over the next 17 days, humanity revealed everything they had been hiding. A fleet of 300 warships, each one as powerful as the Redemption. Weapons that could end worlds with a single shot. Technology so advanced that the greatest scientists in the Confederation could not even understand how it worked. They attacked the Varthani military with surgical precision. They destroyed bases and shipyards and weapons factories. They freed every single human slave, over 12,000 people who would die in chains, and they did not kill a single Vorthani civilian. When it was over, the Vorthani Empire had no military left. Their ability to hurt anyone was gone. But their cities still stood. Their people still lived. Human medical teams even arrived to help with the wounded. The galaxy watched in shock and confusion. And then, just as Nathan Cole had promised, humanity went home. They did not claim Vorthani territory. They did not demand payment. They did not install a puppet government. They simply left. The universe had never seen anything like it. Power without conquest. Strength without cruelty. Victory without vengeance. Every species in the Confederation looked at the humans with new eyes. And for the first time in galactic history, the powerful began to fear the patient. The war was over. But the real change was just beginning. High Counselor Zixter had never been afraid before. In 50,000 years of Kathrani dominance, his species had never met anything they could not defeat or control. They were the masters of the galaxy. They set the rules. They decided who lived and who died. Now he sat in a small shuttle heading toward Earth, the human homeworld. And his hands would not stop shaking. The reports from the Vorthani War played over and over in his mind. 60 ships destroyed in 90 seconds. 17 days to dismantle an empire that had stood for 20,000 years. 300 human warships, each one more powerful than anything the Confederation had ever built. And humanity had been hiding this power for 200 years. They could have conquered everything. They could have crushed the Kathrani and taken their place as the rulers of known space. Instead, they had pretended to be weak. They had let themselves be mocked and dismissed. They had watched their own people die in raids rather than reveal what they could do. Why? That question burned in Zixter's mind. He had to know the answer. He had sent a message to Ambassador Daniel Carter asking for a meeting, and to his surprise, the human had agreed. The shuttle landed in a place called Washington, in a region called North America. Zixter stepped out onto a patch of green growing things that the humans called grass. The air smelled strange but not unpleasant. A yellow star shone in a blue sky. It looked so ordinary, so harmless. How could such a simple world produce such terrifying power? He found Daniel Carter sitting on a wooden seat near a body of water. Small feathered creatures swam on the surface, and Daniel was throwing bits of food to them. He looked up when Zixter approached, but did not stand. "Counselor," Daniel said, "please sit down. The bench can hold your weight." Zixter hesitated, then lowered himself onto the wooden seat. It creaked but held. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Daniel continued feeding the water birds. "You could have destroyed us all," Zixter finally said. "Every species in the Confederation. We have analyzed your weapons. We have studied your ships. Your technology is centuries ahead of ours. Maybe thousands of years ahead. You could have ended us." "Yes," Daniel agreed. He threw another piece of food to an eager bird. "Then why did you hide? Why did you let us treat you like inferiors? Why did you let the Vorthani kill your people and take them as slaves?" Daniel was quiet for a while. A soft wind blew across the water, making small waves. "Do you know what happened on Earth before we reached the stars?" he asked. "I know some of your history. Wars, conflicts, the usual development pattern for a young species. It was worse than you know." Daniel turned to look at the alien directly. "In the century before we invented faster than light travel, we almost destroyed ourselves 17 different times. Nuclear weapons, biological plagues we created in laboratories, artificial minds that tried to wipe us out, climate collapse that nearly made our world unlivable." Zixther's antennae twitched. 17 times? 17 times we looked into the end of everything. 17 times we somehow pulled back from the edge. By the time we finally reached the stars, we had seen the worst of ourselves. We knew exactly what we were capable of when we had power and others did not. He paused, looking out at the water. We remembered the genocides. We remembered the conquests. We remembered the cruelty we inflicted on our own kind, on people who looked just like us and spoke the same languages. And we asked ourselves, what will we do when we meet other species? Will we do to them what we did to each other? Every other species conquers when they have the chance, Zixther said. It is natural. It is logical. The strong survive. The weak serve. This is how the universe works. That is how your universe works, Daniel corrected gently. We decided to build a different one. How? Why would you choose to be weak when you could be strong? We did not choose to be weak. We chose to be patient. Daniel threw the last of his food to the birds and brushed his hands clean. When we reached the stars and found that we were more advanced than everyone else, we made a decision. We would not repeat our mistakes. We would not become conquerors. We would trade instead of taking. We would share instead of hoarding. We would defend instead of attacking. But the Vonthani killed your people. They took your children as slaves. You could have stopped them at any time. Yes, Daniel's voice became heavy with old pain. We could have. And every time we received reports of another raid, another destroyed colony, another ship full of our people being dragged away in chains, we had to make that choice again. We had to decide if this was finally bad enough to break our promise to ourselves. Your promise? The promise that we would never become what we feared. The promise that we would never use our power to dominate others. The promise that we would prove to ourselves and to the universe that strength does not have to mean cruelty. Zixther was silent for a long time, trying to understand. But you did use your power, he said finally. You destroyed the Vonthani military, only after every other option was gone. Only after we begged you for help and you laughed at us. Only after we warned you, clearly and directly, that you were pushing us too far. Daniel looked at him with eyes that held centuries of restrained anger. We gave you 200 years of patience. We gave you 47 formal complaints. We gave you one final warning in front of the whole council. And you still chose to mock us. I remember, Zixther admitted. I remember you said not to push you further. I thought you were bluffing. I thought you were desperate. I did not believe you had anything to push back with. I know. None of you believed. And now you know the truth. Daniel leaned back on the bench. But here is the part that confuses you most. We had the power to destroy the Vonthani completely. We could have burned their worlds and ended their species forever. Instead, we freed our people, destroyed their ability to hurt anyone else, and then we left. We even sent doctors to help their wounded. Why? The question burst out of Zixther with desperate confusion. Why show mercy to those who showed you none? Because mercy is not about what others deserve. It is about who we are. Daniel smiled sadly. We did not spare the Vonthani civilians because they were innocent. We spared them because killing civilians is wrong, and we refuse to do wrong things simply because others have done wrong things to us. That makes no sense, I know. To you, it makes no sense. Power is power. Use it or lose it. Victory means crushing your enemies completely. But we learned something different in our dark years on Earth. We learned that the greatest victory is not destroying your enemies. It is proving that you do not need to destroy them. It is showing that you can be strong without being cruel. Zixther stared at the human beside him. Such a small creature. Such a fragile body. And yet this species had built weapons that could end civilizations and then chosen not to use them. You scare me, the counselor admitted. Your weapons do not scare me as much as your restraint. I cannot predict what you will do. I cannot understand your choices. That terrifies me more than any fleet. Daniel nodded slowly. Good. Maybe that fear will teach you something. What? That the universe does not have to work the way you always thought it did. The strong do not have to crush the weak. Power does not have to mean domination. There is another way. We have spent 200 years trying to show you that way with words. Now you have seen it with actions. He stood up from the bench and brushed off his clothes. Go back to the council, Zixter. Tell them what I told you. Tell them that humanity is not interested in conquest or revenge. We want to trade. We want to share. We want to build something better than the galaxy we found. But also tell them this. Daniel looked down at the alien with eyes that had seen too much and hoped for too much. If any species ever pushes us again the way the Vorthani did, the response will be the same. Fast, overwhelming, final for their military but merciful for their people. We will not change who we are. We will not become monsters, no matter how much the universe tries to make us into monsters. But we will also not let our people die while we have the power to save them. He started walking away, then stopped and looked back one more time. The choice is yours now, counselor. All of you. You can keep living the way you always have, taking and crushing and dominating. Or you can try something different. We will be here either way, waiting, hoping, and ready. Zixter sat on the bench for a long time after the human left, watching the birds swim and thinking about everything he had believed his entire life. For the first time, he wondered if he had been wrong about everything. The years that followed the Vorthani War changed the galaxy in ways no one expected. It started with small things. Species that had been bullied and threatened for thousands of years suddenly found that humanity was willing to stand beside them. When the Drelix Collective tried to take over 3 worlds belonging to the peaceful Mirren people, a single human warship appeared and told them to leave. The Drelix left. No shots were fired. No threats were spoken. The humans simply showed up, and the bullies went away. Admiral Lisa Grant, now the Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces, created something called the Aegis Protocol. Any species that was being attacked by a stronger power could ask humanity for protection. Within 10 years, 32 different civilizations had joined what everyone started calling the Human Alliance. But it was not just military protection that humanity offered. They shared their medicine. They taught in alien schools. They helped build new technologies and solve old problems. They asked for nothing in return except peace and fair trade. The galaxy did not know what to make of them. On Vorthani Prime, 3 years after the war, something impossible happened. A plague had appeared. It spread fast and killed faster. Within 6 months, millions of Vorthani were dead, and millions more were dying. Their own doctors could not stop it. Their own scientists could not understand it. They reached out to other species for help, but no one answered. The Vorthani had made too many enemies. No one wanted to save them. Then a human ship arrived in orbit. Chancellor Cythera, the new leader of what remained of the Vorthani Empire, watched the vessel approach with a mix of fear and confusion. Her species had killed thousands of humans. They had enslaved thousands more. If humanity wanted revenge, this would be the perfect time to take it. Instead, the ship sent a message asking permission to land a medical team. Dr. Kevin Wright led the team that touched down on Vorthani Prime. He was a tired man with gray hair and kind eyes, and he carried cases of equipment that the Vorthani had never seen before. Behind him came 40 other human doctors and scientists, all of them volunteers who had chosen to come help their former enemies. Cythera met them at the landing site. She was a female Vorthani, smaller than the males of her species, but no less fierce. She had risen to power after the military government collapsed, promising her people that she would find a new way forward. She had not expected that way to include humans. "Why are you here?" she demanded. "We killed your people. We took them as slaves. You should want us to die." Kevin looked up from the case he was opening. His eyes were tired but steady. "You are dying," he said simply, "and we can help. That is why we are here, but we do not deserve your help." "Maybe not." Kevin pulled out a device and began calibrating it. "But the children in your hospitals did not raid our colonies. The elderly in your care homes did not vote for war. Even the soldiers who followed orders, they were doing what their culture taught them was right." He looked at her directly. "We are not here to judge who deserves to live and who deserves to die. We are here because helping people is what we do. It is who we are. We cannot stop being who we are just because you were cruel to us." Sithara did not understand. She wanted to understand, but the concept was too strange, too different from everything she had ever known. "You could demand anything," she said. "Our territory, our resources, our submission. We could not refuse you. Why do you not take what you could take?" Kevin stopped what he was doing and looked at her with something that might have been pity. Because taking things from people who cannot refuse is not victory. It is theft. It is bullying. It is everything we hate about the way this galaxy has always worked. He turned back to his equipment. "Now please, show me where your sick are. We have a lot of work to do." Over the next 6 months, the human medical team worked without rest. They identified the plague. They developed a cure. They trained Vorthani doctors to produce and distribute the medicine. 3 billion Vorthani lives were saved. When the work was done, Kevin Wright and his team returned to their ship and left. They did not ask for payment. They did not ask for thanks. They did not even ask for promises of future peace. They simply left, their job complete. Sithara stood at the landing site and watched the human ship rise into the sky. Beside her stood her young son, barely old enough to understand what was happening. "Mother," he said, "why did they help us?" "We were their enemies." Sithara was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know," she finally admitted, "but I think we need to find out." In the years that followed, the Vorthani changed. Slowly at first, then faster. The culture of strength and domination that had defined them for 20,000 years began to crack. Young Vorthani asked questions that their ancestors would have found shameful. Why must the strong take from the weak? Why must power mean cruelty? Is there another way? They looked at humanity and saw the answer. Across the galaxy, other species were asking the same questions. The Mirren, grateful for human protection, began sending aid to worlds damaged by war. The Drelix, humbled by their confrontation with humanity, started negotiating disputes instead of fighting them. Even the proud Kathrani, led by a deeply confused Zixter, began to reconsider policies that had stood for 50,000 years. It was not fast. It was not easy. Cultures that had believed in the law of the strong for longer than humanity had existed could not change overnight. There were setbacks and failures and moments when it seemed like nothing would ever be different, but the change was real. 10 years after the Vorthani War, something happened that would have been unthinkable before. The Vorthani applied to join the Human Alliance, not as conquered subjects, but as partners. Lisa Grant read the application in her office on Earth, her eyebrows rising higher with each paragraph. "They want to help," her aide told her. "They say they have learned from watching us. They want to be part of something better. The species that enslaved our people wants to join our alliance," Lisa said slowly. "The species that killed 40,000 humans wants to stand beside us as equals. What should I tell them?" Lisa was quiet for a long time. She thought about the bodies she had seen on destroyed colony worlds. She thought about the children who had died screaming for parents who would never come. She thought about all the hatred and pain and grief that the Vorthani had caused. Then she thought about Kevin Wright on Vorthani Prime, saving 3 billion lives because it was the right thing to do. Tell them yes, she said finally. Tell them welcome. Tell them we are glad they want to learn. Tell them that is all we ever wanted from anyone. The aide stared at her. Admiral, some of our people will not accept this. There are families who lost everything because of the Vorthani. I know. Lisa looked out her window at the blue sky of Earth. And I will talk to those families myself. I will tell them that their pain is real and their anger is justified. I will tell them that forgiveness is not forgetting. But I will also tell them that if we cannot accept people who want to change, then we are no better than the galaxy we are trying to fix. She turned back to her aide. The whole point of what we do is proving that the cycle of violence can be broken. That species can rise above their worst moments. That the future does not have to look like the past. If we reject the Vorthani now, after everything they have done to become better, then what message does that send? That redemption is impossible? That once you are an enemy, you are always an enemy? She shook her head. No, we will accept them. We will help them continue to change. And in 100 years, when Vorthani and humans are working together on some distant world, building something beautiful that neither species could have built alone, we will look back on this moment and know that we made the right choice. The aide nodded slowly, understanding at last. I will send the message, Admiral. Good. Lisa smiled. And for the first time in years, there was real hope in her eyes. The universe is learning. Slowly, painfully, but learning. And we will keep teaching until the lesson finally takes hold. 50 years had passed since the 92nd War. 50 years since humanity showed the galaxy what they had been hiding. 50 years of slow, painful, beautiful change. The Grand Council chamber looked different now. It was still vast, still impressive, but the atmosphere had changed. The 12 floating platforms were gone, replaced by a great circular table where representatives from over 200 species sat as equals. No one looked down on anyone else. No one was elevated above the others. This was the United Galactic Alliance. And today was the day that humanity would finally accept a seat at its head. Ambassador Megan Foster stood at the entrance of the chamber, taking a deep breath. She was 43 years old, with brown hair and steady green eyes. Her grandmother had been one of the 40,000 killed in the Vorthani raids. A woman Megan had never met, but whose picture hung in her office on Earth. She carried that picture in her pocket now. Are you ready? Asked her aide, a young man named Christopher Blake. No, Megan admitted, but I am going to do it anyway. That is what my grandmother would have done. That is what all of them would have done. She walked into the chamber. The representatives stood as she entered. 200 species, all of them on their feet, all of them showing respect to the small human woman walking toward the central podium. Megan recognized faces from species that had once been enemies. Vorthani, Kathrani, Dominari, Drelix, all of them standing together now, united by the idea that the galaxy could be better than it had been. She reached the podium and looked out at the assembled delegates. For a moment she saw the ghost of this chamber as it had been 50 years ago, when her predecessor Daniel Carter had stood in this same place and begged for justice that no one wanted to give. Things were different now. She had to make sure they stayed different. Thank you all for being here, she began, her voice carrying across the vast space. And thank you for this honor that you have asked us to accept. For years, humanity has declined invitations to lead this alliance. We believed that our role was to serve, not to command. We believed that example was more powerful than authority. She paused, letting her eyes move across the crowd. But you have asked us again and again, and we have finally agreed. Not because we think we are better than you. Not because we want to rule over you. We agreed because you told us that you want to learn what we learned. You want to understand the philosophy that guided us through darkness and into light. So here is what we know. Here is what centuries of pain and hope and failure and success have taught us. She stood straighter, her voice gaining strength. Power is easy. Any species with enough resources and enough time can build weapons capable of ending worlds. Your ancestors did it. Our ancestors did it. Every civilization that reaches the stars eventually learns how to destroy. That is the easy part. The hard part, the part that matters, is choosing what to do with that power. We could have conquered this galaxy. Our military analysts told us so 200 years ago. Every simulation said the same thing. Humanity would win, and we could rule forever. We had the ships, the weapons, the technology. Victory was certain. But we also asked ourselves a different question. We asked, what kind of species do we want to be? What do we want our children to remember about us? What legacy do we want to leave when we are gone? Her voice dropped lower, more personal. My grandmother died in a Vorthani raid when my mother was just a child. She never saw the stars. She never knew that humanity would rise to stand among the great powers of the galaxy. She died afraid and alone, wondering why no one would help her people. I carry her picture with me everywhere I go. And every time I make a decision that affects this alliance, I ask myself what she would think. Would she be proud of me? Would she understand why we chose the path we chose? Megan pulled the picture from her pocket and held it up for everyone to see. A small photograph of a young woman smiling at a camera, frozen forever in a moment of simple happiness. This woman never hurt anyone. She was a teacher. She taught children how to read. And she died because a stronger species decided that her life did not matter. That is the galaxy we found when we reached the stars. A galaxy where the strong took whatever they wanted and the weak could only suffer. We could have become the strongest. We could have taken more than anyone had ever taken. We could have made the Vorthani look gentle by comparison. Instead, we chose to be the species that helped. The species that protected. The species that proved there was another way. She put the picture away and looked out at the delegates with eyes that held no anger, only determination. Some of you have called us naive. Some have called us weak. Some spent decades trying to find the hidden reason behind our behavior, convinced that kindness must be a strategy for some secret conquest. But the truth is simpler than all of that. We chose to be good because being good was the right choice. Not because it benefited us. Not because it made us stronger. Not because we were playing some long game that you could not see. We chose kindness because somewhere in our bloody, painful history, we learned that the universe does not need more conquerors. It needs more healers. She gestured to the assembled representatives. Look at this room. Look at who is sitting here. 50 years ago, half of you were at war with the other half. Species that had hated each other for thousands of years are now working together on shared projects. Former enemies are building colonies side by side. Children are growing up in a galaxy where peace is normal and war is strange. That is what we wanted. That is what we worked for. That is why we hid our power for 2 centuries and let ourselves be mocked and dismissed. Because we believed, we had to believe, that if we just showed the universe a different way, eventually the universe would listen. You listened. Her voice cracked slightly with emotion, but she pushed through. You listened. It took time. It took pain. It took a war that we never wanted to fight and a demonstration of power that we never wanted to give. But you listened. And you changed. And here we are, all of us together, building something that none of us could have built alone. That is why we finally agreed to lead this alliance. Not because we want power. We have all the power we need. We agreed because you asked us to help you stay on this path. You asked us to remind you why it matters. You asked us to be the voice that says, "There's a better way," when the old temptations come calling. She took a deep breath. So here is my promise to you, and through me, the promise of all humanity. We will lead, but we will not command. We will guide, but we will not force. When you disagree with us, we will listen. When you have better ideas, we will adopt them. When you make mistakes, we will help you fix them without judgment or punishment. And if the day ever comes when you decide you no longer need us to lead, we will step aside with gratitude and pride. Because the goal was never to rule this galaxy. The goal was to change it. And when the change is complete, when peace and cooperation are so normal that no one remembers any other way, then our work will be done. She smiled, and there was warmth in it. The warmth of someone who had carried hope through darkness and finally seen it become real. You asked us not to push you further, and you ignored us. You learned too late why we said those words. But we hope now that you understand something else. The same strength that could have destroyed you all was the same strength that let us forgive. And that forgiveness has built something beautiful. This is what humanity kept hidden. Not our weapons, not our technology, our capacity to hope that others could become better than their worst moments. Our stubborn, foolish, wonderful belief that even those who hurt us could become our friends. That is why we asked you not to push us. Because we knew that if you did, we would have to show you what we could do. And we also knew that after we showed you, we would have to show you who we truly were. We are humanity. We are the species that nearly destroyed itself and chose instead to become healers. We are the ones who had the power of gods and the wisdom to know that power means nothing without compassion. And now we are your partners, your allies, your fellow travelers on a journey toward a future where the stars belong to everyone and no one has to be afraid. She raised her hand in a gesture of greeting and welcome. Thank you for learning. Thank you for changing. Thank you for giving us hope that we were right to hope. The universe learned too late why we kept saying please. But it learned, and that is all we ever asked for. The chamber erupted in applause that lasted for almost an hour. Representatives from species that had been enemies for millennia stood side by side, making sounds of approval in 100 different ways. Some cheered. Some clicked. Some hummed frequencies that humans could not hear. But all of them celebrated together and across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds, billions of beings watched and listened. They heard the message that the small species from the small world had been trying to share for 2 centuries. The strong do not have to crush the weak. Power does not have to mean cruelty. There is another way. Humanity had shown them that way. And finally, at long last, the universe had learned to follow in her pocket. Megan felt the photograph of her grandmother pressing against her heart. She hoped, wherever the dead went, that her grandmother could see this mom.